Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 27 of In at the Side. Obviously, we've got regulars, Mr. Dom Hardman and Scenario O'Neill, and today we are joined by a prestigious guest of Mr. Seilala Mapusua. So, Seilala, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey fellas, good, thank you. It's a bit past my bedtime down here, but not anything for you guys.
Appreciate you staying up for us.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining, buddy. So, just obviously going to touch a little bit on your career first. You obviously started down in New Zealand and played for Otago and Highlanders. And what was that like? Obviously, sort of bursting onto the scene in Super Rugby.
Um, it was crazy. I went to high school up in South Auckland, which is the other side of the country, and then yeah, moving down to the South Island in New Zealand. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. It was a bit of a culture shock for myself, coming down here, and it was a lot colder than what I was used to. It's the first time I'd actually lived somewhere where it snowed. Um, but it was cool. It was early days of professional rugby, and I was joining a team and a union that were playing some exciting rugby at the time. So now it was awesome to come down and learn my trade, I suppose, and then. Dunedin's also a bit of a university. It's a university town, so had a hell of a time learning how to be a professional rugby player. Yeah, it was probably it was a great start for me.
Yeah. How did it compare to, obviously, you played in Super Rugby for quite a while, then you went over to the Premiership. How did each league compare? Which league did you find more challenging?
I found both quite challenging.
Mm.
It's hard to compare because they're both very very different
Mm.
and and both um, really challenging and competitive environments. Super Rugby was just it was just all go, all action, all the time, and the weather and the players, and you're playing against test players from Australia and South Africa and New Zealand every other weekend. So
Mm.
it was really hard and fast rugby. And then when I got to the Premiership, the weather kind of dictated um, how the game was played
Mm.
up there, but it was still just as challenging. It was a lot more physical um, at the time for me, I suppose. And yeah, it really made me. I think it was great for me. It just really opened up my eyes into
Mm.
another way of playing the game, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, perfect.
Bro, I've got to admit, as a London Irish fan, it was a pleasure sort of watching you play. And some of the boys that came over, I think you played with Alba Saviali, Alan Bow. So plenty of South Sea Islanders come over, and it was a fantastic run to.
Oh, we had a great crew. One thing I loved about London Irish was a great bunch of lads. From it really was a great mix of Irish lads, English lads, a few South Africans, and then threw in a few Pacific Islanders, and sometimes it made for a dangerous mix, both on and off the field.
A couple of big socials were there.
Oh, they were brilliant. I got to one of the highlights I think for me coming to London Irish was lining up alongside someone like Mike Cat. Um,
Mm.
and then I was kind of fanboying when I turned up to the club. I was running out Mike Cat and Olivier Magne, and I was like looking at these guys were my heroes when I was these are the
Yeah.
guys I love watching play when I was growing up. So
Amazing.
that was really cool, and then um, a really good bunch of lads that I got to play with and come up with, and Nick Kennedy, Bob Casey, David Preston, the Armitage brothers, Topsy Oja. I mean, like it's unfair to name those guys, but it was great crack at the time.
And who was the worst on the drink? Who did you when you saw for the social? Who did you think?
I think the term is who's the worst on the lash, not on the drink, as if they're alcoholics still.
Well, the lash drink, same thing, isn't it?
We had a few ticking time bombs, I think. Stefan Armitage was he was a nightmare. He was a real pest, and we had big Chris Halofia. He was kind of like the enforcer of the team, and whenever there was a bit of a social, and Chris turned up, but I'd get a text or a call on the phone as, "Are you coming? Because Chris has just turned up." I had to make sure I kept the kept the reins on him. But everyone had their moments, and everyone brought different gifts to the party, I suppose. But yeah, just like any other team, I suppose.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Saying about, so we've had our club experiences, which is fantastic, and I know you went off and played in Japan as well for a bit, but I just want to touch on the state of international rugby. So obviously you're fortunate enough to play for Samoa. Also, you played for the Pacific Islanders. So, how did that feel alongside nations longer?
Yeah, I mean, ask any international and they'll tell you playing for their country is the pinnacle. I was really lucky to be able to play for Samoa again in the 2007 World Cup and 2011 World Cup and various tours and that. And it was a childhood dream fulfilled. I remember watching the 1991 World Cup when I was just a young lad and seeing Samoa kind of arrive on the international stage, beating Wales and Argentina, and it was to be able to pull the jersey on was pretty special. I also got to play in those Pacific Island teams, and I remember I was involved in the inaugural team in 2004, and it was possibly the most talented team I'd ever been in. We had these Fijian locks that could run like the Fijian wingers. couldn't really tell them apart, and I think we had, out of the 6 front rowers in the squad, 5 of them were Tongan. Just these big hulking men that would go into meals and they'll have their own kind of table that there was a space in between each of them, and no one dared kind of went over and see how they and sit with them during meals. So the Pacific Island teams were really special, and it's I suppose it's the Pacific's version of the British Martial Alliance. You kind of got the cream of the crop, and for the Pacific, it was the cream of the crop, and missing a few playing for other countries, but probably the biggest difference would be budgets. It is what it is, but I'm sure the experiences were similar, and it was definitely a special moment in my career, representing the Pacific.
Would you say that was a more memorable moment than playing for Samoa? What's your sort of top highlight of your whole career?
Playing for Samoa, I think my first test was always going to be special, but I think beating the Wallabies in 2011 was definitely the highlight of my Samoa career. Especially as Australia were ranked number 2 of the world at the time. It was just before the World Cup, so that's definitely up there as a pretty special moment. playing for the Pacific Islands, it's right up there as well.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd like to see back, that team? Come back around and do it all again? Do you think it'll be beneficial?
Definitely. Beneficial, I'm not too sure, but man, it's great for the fans.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether it would be like a alliance type thing, where it's every kind of 4 years, but I'd love to see them bring something like that back.
Yeah.
It's the tours are good fun because it's not as much. It is and it isn't a lot of pressure. You're not playing for your own country, but you're playing for the bigger region. So there's no pressure and a lot of pressure at the same time. I think is probably the best way I can explain it. But yeah, good fun nonetheless because playing in the Pacific Nations Cup, so the games between Tonga, Samoa, and Fiji are probably some of the hardest games I've ever played in. Just simply because the collisions are unreal, and it's tribal warfare. So, when you finally get to play alongside them, it's like, actually, let's go try and beat everyone else up.
Like you say, it's definitely something fans would want to see.
Yeah. What do you think is stopping it? Do you think it's just purely financials that would stop that?
Yep, financials. I think the global season is already pretty jam-packed as it is. And I think COVID-19's allowed us just to take a bit of a breather and given us an opportunity to hopefully look at our game and kind of search for ways to do things better once we get back into it.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was going to actually ask you if there was one law you could change to promote attacking rugby. What would you do if you were head of World Rugby and you just thought, right, we're going to promote attacking rugby? What would you change?
That's a good question. I think I know they've been trialing you can't kick it out on the full, even in your 22. I like the idea of the position on the field where the origin of the try comes from. So if your origin is from your own 22, it's worth more points if you score the try. So set pieces in the 22-meter line, and your own 22, your try is worth more as opposed to origin is in the opposite 22.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think I quite like 10s.
Yeah,
I like because it's not 7s because it's not good for big guys. But it's close enough. It's close enough to 15s, but with a little bit more space.
Yeah.
That leads us quite nicely on, obviously, World Rugby announcing the sort of the new changes of seemingly replacing scrums with free kicks and other things. Have you had to read through those? What do you think of that? Like those changes they proposed?
Oh, is this the recent ones you're just talking about?
Yeah.
It wasn't around wasn't it to mitigate long periods of gatherings for COVID-19?
Yeah.
I kind of thought they were a little bit of a waste of time, to be honest. Rugby is a contact game. You're gonna be making contact. So to bring in any kind of laws or changes that's to stop you from having prolonged periods of contact is, you might as well play a different sport, I suppose. I mean, I don't see there's enough reason to be changing the laws.
Before you know it, they'll be getting you to do hand sanitizer before every scrum and line out, and stop the game in the middle for a hand wash, and there's loads of ideas.
There is. So I mean, I know it's very serious, but at the same time, it's just play touch.
Yeah. When obviously there's been announcements of Super Rugby coming back and rugby coming back at different stages around the world, do you think that playing in front of empty stadiums or with no fans, do you think that's going to affect teams? Do you think they're going to play less hard, or do you think that they'll just go at it, as they would normally?
I think it might affect a few individuals, but as we know, once the whistle goes, you kind of block. No, you don't really notice the crowd unless you're playing. Unless you're playing somewhere like Kingsholm in front of the shed. Or
I'm glad you mentioned Kingsholm. I don't know. These boys are going to hate this. I'm a Gloucester fan, so I always talk about Kingsholm. Thank you for mentioning it.
Did you two chat before the show?
Yeah, well, I slipped him a fiver just to mention it.
That's what I remember of Kingsholm. Like playing in front of the shed, it's horrible.
Yeah.
The fans are right there. So if you take that away, and I've always thought it gives Gloucester an unfair advantage. You take the crowd out of it. It becomes. I know. Is it a disadvantage? I'm not too sure, but I'd say for the most part, players will. There is something special about playing in front of your home fans and your supporters, and whether it will mean that they don't go as hard. I think it's still a business as well. So players are playing for their livelihood and will be professional about that. But
I know you mentioned before that some clubs have been playing fan noise in the stadiums. Do you think that's going to catch on? Do you think everyone's going to be starting to do that?
Oh, it's weird. There's been quite a bit of talking over this side of the world around it because the first game was last night in the NRL, and people are asking questions like, so they've recorded this from other games. Do the people that were at those games, do they get royalties over the use of their...
They'd have to go around and ask every single person's permission to use it.
Right. So I think it will catch on, but I don't think it'll last.
No.
I think the novelty will wear off in the end, and I hope, fingers crossed, we get fans back to the games because they are part of the event, they're part of the spectacle, and I know players really appreciate it and enjoy having the fans there with them.
Well, we touched on this before, but it's not just the players getting back and the fans being able to watch, but it's the big rugby towns that are missing out on the money. Every time, like you mentioned, Gloucester and Kingsholm, they've lost thousands because that's effectively one of their main revenues is rugby. That most of their economy comes on a Saturday. When the rugby's on, and that sort of sees them through the rest of the week. There's only the little shops and things in town otherwise. So there's small companies in Gloucester and other towns around the UK and around the world that are struggling. So it's everyone's benefit to get back, but obviously we've got to do it sensibly and with government advice, depending on where you are.
Absolutely. I'm involved back now with the community game here in Otago, and just seeing clubs. This is. Rugby is how a lot of these clubs operate. It's the patrons at the bar afterwards. After a game, that they keep these clubs afloat, and hopefully we were able to get back to that. But the road to recovery, some clubs won't be able to recover. So he's hoping that we get back to better times soon.
Yeah.
Except Kingsholm. Except Kingsholm, they can keep the shit empty.
I don't think Gloucester Town Centre's gonna be missing Neil's 2 beers after the game. To
be honest, true. That's a lot.
Just tracking back a little bit, saying about sort of the whole Pacific rugby. Just before I go into a little bit about rugby players and your association with them, I was going to say about Pacific Islanders. Obviously, you've got a lot of transition where a lot of people will go and play for New Zealand. I think you played with, was it Sivivatu? And he was part of the Pacific Islanders team in 2004 and then made his New Zealand debut in 2005.
Yeah.
How much of that comes about? Is that through New Zealand Rugby Union approaching players, or is that through people growing up in Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, wanting to play for New Zealand?
I think so. For the players that grow up in the islands, Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa, a lot of them come to New Zealand on high school scholarships. So they come here for their last 2 years of high school on a scholarship. And for any kid in the islands, no, that's a golden ticket. That's for some of them it's coming to running water, it's coming to hot water, it's coming to opportunities, which they may not have got in the islands. Whilst the Pacific Islands are third world countries, so the law of opportunities in New Zealand and Australia is too great to ignore. And once they come here, that's where I suppose the influence of the All Blacks jersey and rugby, that's where it kind of takes over, and that's where I suppose the dream of playing for the All Blacks starts. I know some might start a lot earlier, but for a lot of them, they come over and they find out actually I'm actually not too bad, and could really make a career out of this. So. So that's where that kind of starts. And someone like City, who came over from Fiji, and he came over with scholarship on high school. Actually, went to my high school a few years after me, and then got an opportunity to play for the All Blacks. And who's going to turn down that opportunity? So for us at Pacific Rugby players, we support our players, just doing anything they can to get a better future for themselves and for most of those, I'd say for all of the PI players, for their families as well.
Yeah.
Right. So how is that viewed of coming over from one of the islands and then deciding to play for another nation? Is that viewed in a negative light or a positive way?
I think it's more viewed in an understanding light.
Yeah.
I feel like whilst myself, I'd love for these boys to play for the islands and strengthen the teams in that sense. But at the same time, I understand, and you can't begrudge them for playing for, if they're good enough to play for the number one team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it, Sitiveni was still a Fijian kid playing for the All Blacks. So whether he's playing for the All Blacks, but he's still representing Fiji. So that, I think that's how we look at it. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to do now is, I suppose I'm trying to make the island teams to be players' first choices rather than the second choice or third choice.
Because obviously, so we've spoken previously. There's the Pacific Rugby Players Association that it's growing more and more of a basis, and like I've had quite a look into it and everything, and particularly the whole my body, my future thing as well. Encourage that. Yeah. How did the whole Pacific Rugby players getting into that? How did that come about and finding it?
So to start off with myself, Hale T. Pole. He used to play up at he used to play here at the Highlanders in Southland, and then also played internationally for Tonga the 07 and 2015 World Cups, and at the time was the Fijian captain Deacon Manu. Used to play at Scarlets as well as the Chiefs. We were playing in our annual Pacific our PNC, our Pacific Nations Championships, and we really struggled. The island teams really struggle with kind of in the past with their own unions in terms of things like getting paid, gear, travel, accommodation. It really wasn't well organized, and at the time, for a lot of us, we were all coming from professional environments, and then getting into island teams and just looking around thinking, this is not good enough. So we kind of decided at the time that, and we'd all been a part of, like I was part of the RPA in the UK, and we'd all been part of player associations around the world. So we figured it was a need for the Pacific Island teams, and we knew that we couldn't do, at the time, doing individual ones we wouldn't be as strong. So forming one to cater for all three teams was going to be a lot more beneficial. And yeah, slowly we start off with just a sorry for swearing, I'm sick of the shit. Started with that, and then we moved on to, right, how do we get it formalized? How do we really get in a position to be able to influence and have an impact on how any future Manu Samoa, Tongan, Fijian players, because I guess we didn't want the next generation of players to have to go through the same things we had to go through in terms of governance and organization and or lack of. And so we started around, we had that meeting 2011, 2012, and then with the help of the International Rugby Player Association with Josh Blackie, who was at the time, we slowly built up and got a constitution, became an incorporated society, and just really went from there to where we are now. We have a board, we have a CEO who has professional development managers. We're still getting there. I think he's got a staff of about 3. We have a full-time professional development manager in Fiji, and we've in the UK we have Junior Fatialofa, who's our players relationship manager, and he works along with the RPA guys. And then in France we've got a couple of part-timers who kind of look after France, and Joe Rokothoko and Marion, I can't even pronounce the last name, Salvador, who they look after all our players over there. So we're slowly trying to grow, and now we've built it up to a point where we have relationships with the 3 unions, and we're able to get in just simple things like memorandums of understandings with each of the 3 unions to work together with them, as opposed to what we were doing when we were playing, which was banging heads, and that wasn't getting us anywhere. So actually trying to work with them, and also with working with World Rugby, just to make sure that our voices are being heard, and we're finally getting some seats at the adults table.
Well, it's some fantastic work, and I'm sure like the boys will agree. Like anything like that, we'll happily sort of share out, get the word out, because it's
Definitely.
I appreciate it. So, yeah, a big part of what we do is probably what we call the pre-elite, and so that's gearing up our young boys on the islands who are potential to become professional rugby players, because you go from being in the village right out in the middle of nowhere to all of a sudden being in the middle of London or being in the middle of Paris, with all this money thrown at you, no support systems in place, where no family, no village around you to kind of keep you in check, and that's where our problems are occurring. So making sure that we're kind of gearing them up before they get over there, and then make sure we're providing support when they get there for a soft landing.
Not such a shock then, is it?
No.
Yeah. If it's a shock for me, then I can't imagine what it's like for a lot of these boys.
So I know Neil's got a couple of things to sort of ask as well.
A couple of scenarios, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of scenarios. But I've got, so obviously being from Pacific, being from Samoa, over here, like I think it's World National Samoan Language Week anyway. And I'm probably a fool of myself saying that we're all having a bit of a talanoa, right?
Talanoa.
From Samoa, if like we had to say there's one bit of, if there's like one Samoan saying or something that you think everyone should follow, the Samoan language week, what would it be?
Probably just seki.
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 What does that mean?
Sweet as. Very good.
Wait,
No.
So you can ask like a question, I'll be like, Seki? Yeah, Seki.
wait. We'll be using
That's
that
what it
one.
is. It's basically, are you okay? I'm very well, thank you.
Perfect. Like ça va in French.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Perfect.
that.
Obviously, I don't know. Obviously, how much you know about Dodger Sevens. We're kind of a big deal, so I'd be surprised if you hadn't heard of us. You know. But no, as I said, we've got that shirt for you for next season. We'll get you playing. You know, you have to start on the bench, unfortunately. But yeah, start off. I want to briefly go back to your career and particularly the end of it. So you had a fabulous career. Played for your national side. You played Super Rugby. You played in the Premiership. Japan as well, obviously. When it came to the end of it, did you? I mean, we're massive advocates of mental health awareness, particularly men's, through rugby as well. And it's always a question that we do ask a lot of our guests. Did you suffer at all, sort of mentally, when you retired, or was it about time, or because I can imagine that a lot of players that play professionally go from playing every day, training, and all this to nothing. I can imagine it's quite a big shock. Was that the case for yourself?
Man, it was massive.
Yeah.
It was something that I'm now trying to pass on to any of our boys that are retiring. I mean, I'd heard about it. I heard about what they call the transition.
Yeah.
I finished up from Japan in 2016, and I thought I'd give myself 6 months off and just to chill out and relax. And so I came back to Otago. I came back to Dunedin. With my family, wife's from here, so I kind of had no choice. I came back and I thought I'd just chill out, enjoy the summer, New Zealand summer, and I kind of first month went past, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Don't have to go to training, don't have to put my boots on, because I really struggled in my last year of playing. I think it was season 17. I really struggled with putting my boots on. And tying my shoelaces. Once I was up and running, I was fine, but just the act of tying my shoelaces, my bootlaces up, was a real struggle for me. And so I decided to finish there. The club we were wanting to talk, but it was actually the year before I was going to finish, but they said 1 more year, so I did 1 more year, and I kind of got to the end of that year, and I thought, I don't want to be in the same position this time next year. I want to get on with my life. And I think I was just about to turn 36. So I was happy to finish. But once I got here, first month was awesome. This is great, living the life. Second month was, it's still cool. Third month, I was ripping my hair out, I need to do something. So finally got a Tiger Rugby were looking for some coach development officers. So I started off there, and so it was great. I went from playing, had a couple of months off, straight into a new role. Yeah. And I remember my first day at work, I turned up and met everyone, and it was awesome. It was real exciting for me. And then everyone just went off to their desks. I was like, oh, hey, yeah, everyone went off this, and I kind of just stood on so what else should I do now? Yeah. So I went and sat on my desk and kind of just looked at everyone, what they were doing. Yeah. Trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, even though I'd interviewed for the job. And then at the lunchtime, I was like, sweet. Right? And I was ready to say, okay, who wants to go for lunch? But people were still working. Some people were in meetings. And it was then it kind of hit me. I was like, wow, I'm really not in a team anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not in the team environment, and there was no banter with the boys, and it took me quite a while to I'd say a good 2 years to fully transition over. So, yeah, and so I threw myself into a bit of study. In my first year out, sounds like I've come out of jail or something. That's what it felt like, because I'd been so institutionalized in routine, and I was told where to go, what to do. This is where you need to be. This is what you wear. And this is how heavy you have to be. And this is what you eat. And I was so used to that when it came time to I had to do it for myself, I actually struggled a bit. And so I'd go to the gym. I thought, I'm still keen to train, and I'd absolutely kill myself in the gym. I'd come out absolutely sweating, because that's the only way I knew how to train.
Yeah. Would you say you missed the social side more when you stopped? Would you say you missed the social side of rugby more when you stopped? Because like you say, you can go to the gym and absolutely beast yourself and effectively do the same amount of physical work. But if you're not having that time at the end where you're having banter with your mates, is that the biggest loss, do you think?
I think, no, I've had a few years now to think about it, and people ask me now, what do I miss the most? It's the changing room. I miss the games. I love. There's games I'll always remember, and there's games that always, that just certain games, not all. Like, there's so many games I couldn't tell what the score was. I might remember someone or something from the game. It's the changing room. So it's the changing room at training during the week. It's the changing room just before the game. It's the changing room just after as soon as the game's finished, whether you've won or you've lost. So I kind of thought what I missed the most was that locker room, and all the emotions and memories that came with it. And I think that is probably what I missed the most about rugby is the changing room.
Perfect.
Weird to say,
I've got one more question on that before we go into scenario time, as we call it. The one question on that is, what one piece of advice would you give to someone that is coming to the end of their career, whether it be professional or grassroots? What one piece of advice would you give them to sort of lessen the blow from playing? What would you sort of advise them to do?
I think staying connected, I think is important, but staying connected to people people outside the game whilst you're in the game.
Yeah,
I think it's massive. But also, once you come out, I was fortunate enough to have one of my best mate who retired a few years before me, and so he knew exactly what I was about to go through. So he was, it was almost getting annoying. Like, bring me up, come, let's go for a coffee. Yeah, I'll come pick you up. Yeah, but like, he was always checking in on me. So it's important to make sure you have that support system in place. And it doesn't have to be rugby mates. It could be, could be your parents. It could be anyone. It could be. Probably, I'll suggest not your significant other. Yeah.
It'll be mates for you then, Neil.
Mate for me, yeah. Cheers, mate.
Because they will probably need their own support person, because it's a big deal for them as well. That'd be my advice. Just stay connected and make sure that if you are playing, make sure you're having interests and friends outside of the game. And it's important, because what I've noticed now is that I've made so many friends throughout rugby, but none of them live in the same city as me. So it's really important to get those that network outside of rugby as well.
It's great advice. Great advice. Right, we've been asking all our guests recently for a top 15. Now, the rules are slightly flexible. Okay, we first started off with players that you've played with. Then we kind of moved it to players you shared a pitch with. We thought we'd do a bit of a slant on it today, and we thought, in terms of the yourself, obviously, and in honour of them, we thought to ask you for a Pacific Islanders 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what we're going to do is match all these teams against each other on sort of social media and get the fans to sort of, vote on which team they think would go through and that sort of thing.
The fans.
The fans. God, you've got a massive fan base, Dom. You've got a massive fan base.
So would this be like Pacific Islanders have just played for the Pacific Islands? Like, I can't pick Manatū Langi or...
That's a big clause there.
I'd say that's completely up to you. Let's say Pacific Heritage.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with players that have only represented the Pacific Islands, just to keep it out. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. Okay. Should I start with the front row?
Yeah.
Okay. Lucid prop, I'll probably go. I know he's a tired, but I'll go for Felice. Ex-Cardiff player. Hooker. Trevor Leota.
Good choice.
Tie head, I'd have to go Census Johnston. Locks. One would definitely be Leone Nakarawa. Wait, do I have to have played against these guys?
No.
No, not necessarily.
Okay. The other lock. That's a tough one. To go Leone. I'll throw in I'll throw my mate Dan Leo in there. One side flanker. There's so many to choose from.
So he's your mate as well, isn't he, Donovan?
Yeah, I played against him last season before.
Six. I think I will go Chris Hallofier at 6. 7. This is tough. Probably Nelly Latu. And 8, I'll go just because he's a whole back row by himself as well. Henry Tulangi. 9, I'll go Khan Fotoli. 10. Oh, wow. Tusi PC. 11 will be, wow, any Fijian in the world.
So you got a lot to choose from there.
I think 11 of the wingers I've played with will probably be Cirili Bobo. 12, I would put Eliota Funano Sao Paulo in there. 13, Sarah Rombini, God rest his soul. 14 will be Alessandro Tulangi, and 15. What I have at 15. I actually don't know. Maybe another Fijian.
I was going to say no Rapani Thau on either wing.
Yeah, that's a big shout.
Oh, there you go. There's my fullback.
And who would you have managing the team?
Oh, I'd I'd have to put myself somewhere, wouldn't I?
So not many of our guests have put themselves in the team. I'd put myself in straight away if I was named in the team.
No, fair play for knowing all the positions. We get some guests on, they're like, I'll just do a back line or I'll just do a forward pack because they don't know the whole setup.
Right, one question I've been asking all of our guests is the lockdown question. You're locked down for 2 weeks. This is the scenario with someone that you've played with in your career. Okay, you can't go outside. You can't have your hours exercise. You're literally locked in. People are bringing you food each day. Who would make it an absolute nightmare? Who do you think you couldn't survive 2 weeks with as someone that you played with in your career?
Oh, good question. I could probably have one from every team I've played in.
I think Jack would be interested to know the London Irish one.
He's probably winning at the moment too. Who couldn't I be with? If anyone, probably Stefan Armitage.
Right, and why is that?
Oh no, he's going to break Jack's heart.
We'll call him out. We'll get him on it. We'll get him on it.
He'll have to come and defend himself now, won't he?
Yeah.
No, Steph's okay sometimes.
Now, you mentioned earlier that obviously he was a bit of a nightmare on the drink sometimes. Would that be the main reason he'd be a bit of a nightmare, or is there another reason?
Yeah, no, that'll probably be the main reason.
Stop saying on the drink. He's not got an alcohol problem.
On the drink, drinking on the lash. Big difference. Yeah, right. Perfect. And okay, one sort of final scenario question. You wake up in a dark room. That little freaky thing from Saw cycles across on his little tricycle. All of a sudden, on the table, you've got four bottles of Jägermeister, 20 pints of Guinness, 10 vodka and cokes, and 10 whiskey chasers. You've got to pick one player to help you get through them in 3 hours. Who'd you pick?
Oh, anyone that played from London Irish in 2006 to 2000.
I told you, boys, this is why I fell in love with rugby. That's it.
Wow. There's some pretty, it could be Chris Alafia.
Right.
Strong.
I mean, he would do most of it, would he? Or is it just you go drink for drink on it?
I think it'll turn into a race.
Yeah. Very competitive.
Turn into a race on who falls asleep first.
Brilliant.
And there's one question that, funnily enough, Jack asked the other day, which I think is a great question. I asked it previously a couple of days ago. If you could give your 16-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Question. Take the blue pill.
What was that? Take the blue
pill. I think I'll just say. I'd say make sure you're present.
Mm-hmm.
Be present. But I think earlier on in my career, I was always looking to the next. It took me a while to really enjoy what I was doing, I think. So just, if anything, just make sure I was present and then also, later on in the career, make sure not to be too present.
Brilliant.
Perfect.
Well, so Dom, anything else from you, buddy? Or
all good. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for having me, guys, and really appreciate the chat, and I wish you guys all the best of what's going on down there.
Thank you very much.
You guys are doing some awesome stuff with Dodgers, and I can't wait to pull on that jersey.
Excellent. Well, we'll hold you to that. We'll get that sorted, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Seilala, and we'll all be, every game we play on from now, we'll all be Seki. So,
Seki boys. Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to catch up when we got some rugby to talk about, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, man. You got my details now, so
Perfect.
we're always happy to chat, man.
Awesome.
Perfect.
well, Seilala, thank you very much, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening.